Welcome to the Five of Us. We are five outspoken women with close to 150 years of experience as broadcast journalists. We left our jobs on the very same day, and we are dedicated to helping women avoid the many pitfalls common to the workplace. We've heard from hundreds of people recounting tales of woe on the job, and we have done the research, we're putting it all in a book, and we are here to help. I'm Roma Torrey, and along with Kristen Shaughnessy, Janine Ramirez, Vivian Lee, and Amanda Farinacci, we are the Five of Us.
Hi, everyone. We're glad you're with us or listening to us. The five of us talk in some form almost every day, if not every day. And we often send each other articles, posts, tweets, just things that interest us. So we thought on this podcast we would just each select a topic that we were interested in, and we're going to discuss it more at length. So we're going to start with you, Vivian. The five of us, our ages have been very well documented in recent years. So this may come as no surprise to people that this would be interesting to you. A lot of people are very reluctant to talk about their age, men and women.
Right.
But some people are not, and we embrace that.
Yes.
And you have found?
Umpteen examples of women, especially, who are tired of what they were socialized with, which was never divulge your age. Mm-hmm. But now with social media, I'm seeing so many more age positive exclamations, people owning their age. I mean, I'm 48, turning 49 later this year. It's very empowering to be able to say, I've lived my life, I'm showing it. I want to age gracefully. I mean, I want to take care of myself. I want to be healthy and not just look healthy, but also I want to start to kind of take off the chains of what age means, especially for women, because it's a very limiting step. We've all been living with throughout our careers this idea that men age like fine wine, but women, are, what was the saying that you said, Roma, once? It was
gravitas.
Gravitas, yeah. Men have gravitas, but women.
I said that.
Women don't. Men age like a fine wine.
So smart.
Men age like a fine wine, but women don't. This idea that women get worse as they age is just total BS.
Or that commercial. Age is just a number, but mine's unlisted.
What?
My mom stopped with age is just a number, and that's how I was raised. She's like, who cares? As long as you're, able and healthy, and that's what's important. But it also depends on what you're raised with.
Well, I mean, it also, when Don Lemon said his famous, woman is past her prime, Nikki Haley was past her prime because she was in his 50s. Meanwhile, he's basically the same age and doesn't see that he's talking about a double standard that he's benefiting from.
Yes.
It called to mind how I had been raised not to divulge my age. So if anybody needs inspiration for how to start to do this, all you have to do is look at some of the celebrities who, granted they've got the status, they have the money, they have the leisure time, and possibly maybe staff to help raise their families so that they can focus on their well-being. But I mean, just to list a couple of examples of women who are looking great as they get grayer and as they age, they're showing their wrinkles. Andie MacDowell is a perfect example.
She's beautiful.
She's been reported as saying that, one time a reporter asked her, how do you feel about losing your beauty? And she retorted, I'm not losing my beauty. I'm gaining a different kind of beauty.
Yeah,
and she shows her wrinkles and her gray hair, and she's got this massive crown of mercury-colored curls that I absolutely adore. Kate Winslet, when she won her Emmy for her role in Mare of Easttown, which happened to also be an Emmy season that recognized other women who were between the ages of 45 and 70, she said that her character was a middle-aged, imperfect, flawed mother who made us all feel validated. So in other words, I am playing someone and being recognized for playing someone who is living an older life, is gaining experience, is learning as she goes, and kind of reflects what we all are going through, which is everyday life.
Let me ask you this.
And that was a good
she
show.
playing an older woman compared to what, was she cast as an older woman or wasn't?
She was, yeah.
Because they wouldn't give an older woman the role.
Probably.
I mean, she's a great actress. I'm not saying that, but it's
possibly.
the
How old
irony
is she? Because the woman in her character was about, I think, her same age.
Oh, she was. That's what I was asking.
She's in her middle. She's middle-aged. Yeah.
Okay.
So
her character was the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
But usually actresses in their 40s end up playing the mother of men in their 40s.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or younger actresses are then dressed up to look older.
Yes, right.
Which is very strange. And then, of course, there's Michelle Yeoh's famous statement when she looked straight into the camera and said, women, don't let anyone tell you that you're past your prime. And that was a direct response to Don Lemon's comment when he was the former CNN morning show anchor. And I thought that was incredibly empowering because she herself has had a very long-standing career, and she won for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And then my last example is Paulina Porizkova, who has this long-running Instagram album. Actually, she's got several social media platforms, but she shows her age with her makeup off too. So she's like really, putting it all out there.
Well,
and
she's
of
a
course,
former supermodel.
She is a former supermodel, but this puts her like into supernova status for me because she's willing to do that on a regular basis.
And she's still wearing bikinis and stuff, right?
Yeah, she's in fabulous shape.
She's great.
She used to be on
But there
Sports
aren't a
Illustrated,
lot of-
right? And now she's still like, this is still me. Yeah.
But there aren't a lot of supermodels from her era, right? The late 80s into early 90s that are doing that. Linda Evangelista famously went through some cosmetic surgery.
Disfiguring her.
A disfigurement because she was obviously responding to the stress and the pressure of having to look like she did 20 years ago, which nobody can do. So anyway, that's all to say that there are many examples of inspiration and role models out there for aging well.
I recently watched this Netflix, or it was on Hulu, about Victoria's Secret. I think it's Demons and Devils or something. It's about the Victoria's Secret show and really how it met its demise because the men at the top weren't listening to the women and they missed the cultural shift and they were trying to just really make it as sexy as possible, and to the point where the women were like, I'd go home and cry and whatnot, and they didn't listen to the women. So I recommend people watch that. There was also ties to Jeffrey Epstein in there. It's a good watch, but it's along the lines of what you're talking about.
Wow.
Speaking of social media, that's your topic that you want to talk about. We've had a couple podcast discussions where we've talked about the pressure that it puts on, especially when you have young kids.
Yeah, it's hard. You scroll through, we tell people it's not good for you. The Surgeon General has said, teenagers, it's not good for you, but I don't see anybody putting their phones away. I don't see anybody really without making a deliberate choice, taking a break. But in that vein, I do think that on the flip side of that, there is space to find different groups and posts and content and education about positive mental health. And I think that's for me, an important thing to sort of temper some of what you see, right? To just get you in a good place. So there's a couple that I like now that how when you click on something, then something else comes up and something else
You're
is now
feeding the
everybody's
algorithm.
telling me that I need mental health help. But on a serious note, there are many topics that come up that I think just are really important for people to see and to think about and to have conversations. There's one that I highlighted, positive thoughts can change the structure of your brain. Similar to how physical exercise gradually changes the body, positive brain workouts help form new neural pathways and can disrupt negative thinking patterns, which I think is just very cool because it's this whole link. If you guys know, you know me pretty well. I'm a big mind-body person, right? What you tell yourself in your head will somehow manifest in your body. So it's very important to think about what you're thinking about and what you're telling yourself.
And you just did the marathon,
yes,
right?
Yes,
So
right,
your
right.
body is
But really, what is running a marathon? It's a physical thing that's driven by your mental ability to tell yourself you can actually do it. Because 13 miles is not fun, but what are you telling yourself the whole way, right?
A year after major cancer surgery, we should say as well. So, bravo.
So yay. Yes, thank you. Another one I like is people will love you, people will hate you, and none of it will have anything to do with you. I'm just thinking just because we spend so much time, all of these issues are based on things that catch our eye, but where do they catch our eye? On social media, right? So sometimes I think it's healthy to take a deep dive into something else that will just get you thinking about things in a different way that perhaps will just take some of the negativity about, because it really is very hard, especially I have young kids and there's a lot out there that's designed to make you feel less than. And I think that gets really hard in ways that you notice and ways that you don't, right? It pops up in your life where you may not even be really conscious of all the things that have become part of you because of what you've seen on social media. One person that I think is interesting to follow is Kristen Bell. She's right. She does what was it? Forgetting Sarah Marshall, that ridiculous movie that I love. But she has openly talked about her struggles with mental health, and now she gets on her social media. Her husband is a recovering alcoholic, whatever his name is, Dax Shepard. But they're interesting because I'm all about my purpose for social media is and for just generally is just like people talking about real stuff and like talking about it in a real way, right? Like your point about aging, right? Like put the post up there what people actually look like and what people are actually talking about. And I think those accounts are good. Kristen Bell, I think now has like some kind of contract with like a mental health. I've seen commercials like you'll see her where she's like, "How are we feeling today?" And then she's obviously in out of sorts. And then she said, "We've tried this, 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 and this." And you see like her body pop up in several different ways where she's like, "I went for the run. I took my journal out, whatever." Sometimes you just need a minute to talk to people, whatever. All of this to say my mental health is fine, but I am a promoter of just the idea that what you think matters and what you tell yourself matters. And I think that there's a space for that, and there's definitely conversation from that can, on balance, be helpful to people who do spend a lot of time on social media.
I love that because as moms, we've also talked about in previous episodes about the social media momfluencer who, adds stress to us. But I find that I'm much more geared than my husband to thinking about all the things that can go wrong, like as my kids run down the street or as they zip line, at a birthday party. Or I've been geared that way for several years now, and now I'm finding that I'm not thinking about the great things that could come out of this experience as much, right? I have to relax. Maybe it takes maybe an hour or two to relax before I realize, this is really going great. But I don't
enjoy the moment.
And then I enjoy the moment. But how much more powerful would it be if I didn't have the negative obstacles kind of jumping up in front of me and me seeing them as hurdles that I have to get through from the get-go? And it does take some practice.
No, but it's worth it. It's a worthwhile. I mean, I just speak from my own experience. And I think that you can get through anything if you have the right headset. I think you need that.
And it's hard to tune out the negatives sometimes, right? Like you could have 100 people say wonderful things and one person say something nasty. And you remember that one thing. And it's like, why does your brain do that, right? Like you have to train yourself.
And social media is really good with the negatives. Right? That's part of the problem.
All right, let's go to you, Janine.
Well, also for activism, right? Like social media is actually very good for activism. And so I've been following Amanda Gorman's posts. And, she's the young American poet and activist whose work focuses on oppression, feminism, racism. And she really rose to fame during the Joe Biden inauguration where she gave, a poetry reading back in 2021. And she has been posting, and she's done this a couple times, the same post, saying one parent could get my poetry banned from classrooms, and yet one country can't ban assault rifles from massacring them. So, of course, she's referring to her book, The Hill We Climb, which has been banned from Florida elementary school kids. There was
for being too woke?
I guess for being too I guess that's the reason, because so they said it wasn't appropriate for the elementary school level. They moved it up to the middle school level. And this is the book that she did recite during the inauguration. And it was a parent from Miami-Dade County who said it wasn't appropriate for this elementary school, and they just kind of went with it. And
I think it was because the complaint was that it encouraged violence or something. I mean, it was the most ridiculous thing because she's an activist, but she encourages
a peaceful
change, not violence.
Had the woman who asked for it to be banned read it?
She complained.
Seriously, sometimes that happens, right?
Yeah, that is a good question.
She complained that it caused like confusion for younger generation, and that it indoctrinated students. She does talk about being a descendant of a slave. So too woke would probably
them uncomfortable.
It's probably right. It makes them uncomfortable. It's probably like the argument that she's using here. But Amanda Gorman is now trying to use her social media platform to help fight censorship. And so she has teamed up with, she helped with fundraising efforts now. She's helping with fundraising efforts for the platform PEN America, which is a free speech organization, to fight, banning books and censorship. And there's also a lawsuit pending too. Penguin Random House is the publisher of her book, so they're in a lawsuit too about the ban. And obviously the gun issue is a big issue as well, right? Because this is like, you could ban books, but you can't ban guns. That's what I'm saying. So it's like a larger issue here, but the fact is that she's using her platform now to raise the issue to kind of help the fight against censorship and banning and raising the gun issue at the same time.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, because it's forcing conversations, right? We can go on and on about the gun debate, and everybody has different opinions about that. But I think the big thing is people just want to limit. Like, I'm for gun ownership, but you don't need assault rifles that can that you use in war. I don't think that is necessary. But the same people who don't want to ban those want to ban the books. So I don't understand that. You either want government in your life or out of your life, but.
Right, and they always want it both ways.
That argument does not.
Or like government can't ban my rifles, but they could ban abortions. It's not right. It's not uniform like some of the decisions. And so social media obviously has a lot of this, and people to get very political on social media.
I love that. She's basically saying stay and fight, like fight for Florida. Meanwhile, Governor DeSantis said, all of you who don't like what we're doing with our war on woke, you can leave.
Yeah.
Like, where is the American patriotism there?
I do
and
wish
now
we
they have
were
an unemployment problem.
Oh gosh.
I do wish we were at a point where we could have these conversations without someone saying, just because you don't share my opinion, and don't shout me down because I don't share your opinion. We all have different opinions at this table, but we all have conversations. So I think we have to get back to that. There used to be a bipartisanship in this country where you could have bipartisan bills, they could actually get passed, and not to get into politics, whatever, but it's just it's shouting each other down. It's ridiculous on both sides. All politicians, I feel like enough. You're just pandering and to get something done.
So. But I love the way people like Amanda Gorman are handling these things because she has, in essence, been attacked. And so she's turned that into a mission, a crusade, if you will,
and a platform
to try to to try to do away with that type of attack on woke or whatever it is, to offer people the opportunity to maintain their free speech. And it happened similarly. I was just reading a case about a meteorologist in Iowa who always talked about climate change in his weather forecasts, right? And he just quit because he couldn't take the threats anymore from folks,
who don't believe in climate change.
Who were complaining that there is no climate change, right? And so he's decided he's quitting his job, but now he's focused full time on dealing with climate change and trying to reverse the effects, in whatever way he can, which is good. I mean, you're taking what could be a very divisive situation, or what is a divisive situation,
which is crazy. That's even divisive.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be. But you're making it work for you, for the betterment of humankind. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah,
really wonderful.
We're going to move to you, Rome. The future of work in America.
Future of work in America. So, in a previous episode, I had talked about us being at a sort of at a turning point in terms of how we regard work in this country. And I've always been fascinated by how much and how quickly our attitudes have changed about the workplace. And for the most part, recently it's been triggered by the pandemic, and it has forced people to reassess how they feel about going to work. And it's mostly been motivated by this whole notion of work-life balance, which I think was I never heard of work-life balance until, like 3 years ago, but suddenly that's the thing. So I was always wondering.
Because there was no work-life balance.
Yeah, right. It didn't exist. We just took it as it came. Yeah. So I have been looking at predictions based on, what is our future when we go to work. And I can't say I'm surprised, but the changes that have been predicted are pretty extreme. And so the first one I looked at is a 4-day work week. We are headed for a 4-day work week, and there have been a number of surveys that came out, and for the most part, the majority of people who were surveyed said, yes, they love the idea, even if it means that during each of those 4 days, they have to work maybe an extra 2 hours, for the
10 to 12 hour
same
days or whatever.
productivity.
Is that in every sector? Because I could see white collar jobs, white collar
Good
workers
question.
saying that more than the retail industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
And the retail industry probably needs it more. It's
Right.
all they have to deal with, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, back to that. It has been experimented in other countries, and which one is it? I think it's Belgium is the first country to legislate a 4-day work week, and now it's like mandatory, and they have to,
Is
make
it working?
It is. It's very, very successful. They say there's a lot more productivity. And then they go by this model. They call it the 180-100 model. And so it's 100% of the pay, of the salary, 80% of the time at work, and 100% of productivity. So a lot of people who are in Belgium seem to think that they can get just as much accomplished working the 4 days with their usual hours than they would working the 5 days with those same hours.
There is a lot of wasted time in a workplace. If you look around and see people like just hanging out and talking and stuff when you're trying to work or whatever, there is a lot. Like if you eliminate that and you say, I'm going to have 3 days off, but I got to work and get this done, I could see it really working.
Yeah, it's helped with mental health as well. To have a 3-day weekend as opposed to 2, because a lot of people say, you decompress on Saturday and then all day Sunday you get ready for the next day Monday.
Yeah,
right?
you
You don't
worked
get
up.
enough sleep and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So then there was a survey by a cloud software vendor called, what is it? Qualtrics. Okay. 92% of workers in the United States say they're all for a 4-day work week. And about 3/4 of them said they could get just as much work done. Although that same 3/4 said it likely would mean that they'd have to work longer hours for the 4 days, which they said they were okay with. Then there was a website that analyzed work-life data, and here's their predictions for what we can expect. We're in 2023, so 7 years hence. In the year 2030, they say, this one is amazing, 85% of the jobs that will be existing in the United States in the year 2030 will not have existed in 2020. So 10 years prior,
80%?
85% of all the jobs. And that because, think about it.
Scary and exciting at the same time.
AI, all automation, everything has changed, right? And so maybe you might have a job in a factory, but most of it is going to be done by robots, so you have different responsibilities.
Well, I'm shopping for a car right now, and they said future of cars, no AM radio.
Oh, yeah, I heard that.
Oh, it's just all going to go.
Yeah, it's just not going to, no cars in the future. are
Meaning
gonna
the
have
models that you're
AM.
looking at don't even have an AM dial?
There's going to be no AM dial.
Which means all the people who work in AM radio are out of a job.
SOL.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. That's
Oh yeah, I was
that's
kind of
horrendous.
shocked. I'm like, ooh, I know a lot of people who work in AM
Yeah,
radio. What
yeah.
happens to their jobs? But I
Okay.
know like 1010 Winds, which is our all-news station in New York City on AM, has now has an FM.
Yeah, but
Location.
their
That's why.
FM is actually doing really, really, really well.
Yeah, they switched.
really well.
Well, they're going to have
Yeah.
to because AM is disappearing.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
And even my daughter in her 20s is listening to it. She's
Oh,
like,
good,
into,
yeah.
She's into the news finally. I did something right.
Way to go, Allegra.
All right, so wait, I'm just going to give you a couple more because it just, okay, 65% of women say the pandemic made them rethink the place that work has in their lives. That goes without saying, right? Now here's another one. 37%, by the year 2030, 37% of Americans will be working remote. And that, that's kind of interesting considering that at the height of the pandemic, half of Americans were working remote. So, it hasn't changed that much. And by the year 2030, half of the entire workforce of the United States will be freelance. Freelance. Now, isn't that amazing? Especially because, think about it. Why do most people want to work full time?
Benefits.
Because of the benefits, right?
But the benefits are disappearing.
Benefits are gone. And workplace, and then there was
I
another.
remember when Jamie, my oldest, said, well, every job comes with a pension. I said, not.
God.
Most jobs don't come with a pension.
That's
Like,
done.
it's
That is done.
Yeah.
And then what was it? 74%. Okay, 3/4 of American companies plan to offer hybrid work, which is wonderful. So this whole notion of not having to go into an office or into a workplace is now pretty much part of the standard operating procedure in workplaces, which I think is good.
Except to Martha Stewart.
What did she make you come in?
Posted.
She's very opposed to remote work.
She's very opposed to it. And in Manhattan, they just recently celebrated a return to 50% occupancy in commercial buildings.
Yeah,
so it's still, in major cities, it's still a preoccupation for employers that they're paying for all of this real estate and rent, and they want the bodies in there working to justify it.
They'll have to convert.
So then if those statistics play out, what happens to all of that real estate?
Maybe it becomes
other
housing.
Affordable housing, exactly.
The other piece, like you mentioned, that this is like, if this actually holds true for 20, there's like so many like things about our attitudes towards work that have to change along with it, right? Like
they're 19th century ideas.
But like city government, right? Like most of the municipal unions that just signed contracts have negotiated for one remote day, which is like basically unheard of, right? For administrative,
one day,
just one. But that's a bit. I mean, I think people are taking that as a massive win because it's been so no way, Jose, right? But on the flip side of that, the other thing that happens is like if the mandate is to work 35 hours and you've worked 35 hours by Thursday, people still don't have the, I want to say permission or like the attitude where they won't not go to work the next day, despite the fact that they've already reached their hours, because there's just something that's been drilled into your head, like you need to be at work for XYZ days, unless it's blatantly said, by the way, we're only working Monday to Thursday, and everybody's off. Like we're on an official 4-3. But some of those mechanisms exist, but there's a lot of resistance from people to actually embrace it because of decades-old ideas about what work should look like. And so,
Societal
if we
norms,
get to 2030, it's going to have to be, one person who does the annoying thing that then becomes the accepted thing, right? Like that's kind of how it has to change.
Right.
But
You don't want to be the only one who does the no-show.
right. But I mean, this is like what actually happens. Like you push the envelope, and then if somebody calls you out, you're like, well, what do you mean? I did what I was supposed to do. What am I missing here? But it's still the perception, like, well, you should have been there. And that stuff.
It's hard to change the mindset.
Yeah, it's very hard.
It's kind of like sexism and ageism.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But also, everybody has access to email and access to text 24 hours a day. And that wasn't the norm, right? So now technically, okay, you could work 3 days on the clock or 4 days on the clock, but you're really always on the clock in a way because you're always tied to your device.
Yeah.
And you should sort of be. You should be answering your emails on the weekend, maybe a little bit. We were talking about that, right?
And that according to Gen Z.
I know.
No, Gen Z
There's
says
got to
no
be
way.
compromise somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a good discussion. I had one, but we'll save it. You can see my tweets. I tweet about the financial sector all the time. And I think reporters who are reporting on the financial sector think you should report the truth and not necessarily things that are not happening. So that would be. I'll leave it there. It's vague. I'm very descriptive in my tweets.
Suspense. We have to go to the next one. And
thanks, everyone, for listening, watching. We will see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to The Five of Us. We want to hear from you with any questions, ideas, or suggestions for future discussions. Just write to us at the email you see here, and we will be eager to help. Talk to you next time.